Okay.
Now we're official. Adequate notice of this meeting, February 23rd, 2012, has been provided in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act by posting written notice and agenda of the meeting on the bulletin board in the municipal building at 1000 Route 10, Whippany, Township of Hanover, and by hand delivering and mailing or faxing such notice and agenda to the following newspapers: the Hanover Eagle, Morris County's Daily Record, and the Star Ledger, and by filing same with the Township Clerk. May I have a roll call?
Committeeman Schleifer.
Here.
Committeeman Faramascas.
Here.
Committeeman Bruno.
Here.
Committeeman Capola.
Here.
Mayor Francioli.
Here.
5 members in attendance, sir.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, would you all please rise and join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. We have a very nice honor tonight for our Township Committee, a presentation that we'd like to make, and a presentation that has been done earlier by a board that I'm happy to serve with, and that's our Board of Health. And that presentation is going to be to Patricia Russamano, Pat. And we're going to have the administrator read the inscription on the plaque. That did want to come out.
Reads as follows: Distinguished Service Award, presented by the Hanover Township Committee to Patricia Russamano, in recognition of your distinguished service as a public health professional. Congratulations on being named Public Health Nurse of the Year by the New Jersey Association of Public Health Nurse Administrators, dated today, February 23rd, 2012.
Pat, that is quite an honor, really, and I know a lot had to go into it, a lot of dedication and commitment on your part, and we're just so proud, that you're part of us, part of our Hanover for this. The health department in general, my opinion, that George Van Orden, stellar. I mean, really, we just want to make sure that George is comfortable here in Hanover and that the state of New Jersey doesn't get his little claws on him. But that being said, but Pat, quite an honor, and we're happy to share it with you here in Hanover. So I'd like you to come forward and stand at the same time. Would you want to come forward as president of the chairman of the all you got to do is be able to do that again next year, Pat. Okay. All right, you have a PowerPoint presentation by Silvio on the. Or do you want to? How do you want to do that? Oh, you got this set up? Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what we're going to do is our financial officer, in order to answer a lot of questions relative to the revaluation that we just asked, various questions about what that's going to do and how it affects our taxes and what's going to happen here. And our financial officer's put together a brief PowerPoint presentation. And he's going to, I'm going to turn it over to you, Silvio. You're going to go through that, right?
Okay. Hanover versus County evaluation for 2012. So everyone's assessed value has changed. So what actually is a revaluation? It's a program undertaken to appraise all real property to its fair market value. By fair market value, we mean the price the assessors believe the property would sell for at a bona fide sale. The need for the revaluation county will determine that a revaluation is needed. That's what happened 2 years ago. It wasn't a decision made by the municipality, it was actually ordered on us by County Morris. So what happens during the revaluation? Inspectors go out and they inspect the interior and exterior of all the properties. They study recent sales to get a good estimate on the value of properties in the township or in a neighborhood. They view any other information that may have an influence on the value of the property. And then they determine each property's fair market value. So everybody came in, they got their cards. Is my tax going to double? Just because there's a revaluation does not mean that your taxes are going to increase. Assessments are used excuse me, to appropriation the amount to be raised by taxes for the operation of the township's budget, schools, county, and the fire district's budgets. I'm just going to go over some key definitions before we go any further. The amount to be raised by taxes is the total budget appropriations less any anticipated revenues, such as state aid, licensings, fees, court revenue, or hotel tax, or other interest we receive. Assessment is the value of the property that's always counted against a $100 value. Tax rate is basically the amount to be raised by taxes divided by the total assessment. And again, the fair market value is basically a price that a buyer would be willing to pay or a seller would be willing to accept for his property. So in 2011, we're just using round estimated numbers. If the township were to raise $15 million in taxes, and we had a total assessment of $2 billion in the township, your tax rate was 75 cents. After the revaluation, the township still, by law, can only raise basically the $15 million plus whatever increases were allowed by the 2% cap. But now your assessment's basically doubled. So the tax rate, in effect, is going to be cut in half. So in 2011, if your property had a value of $250,000 at the 75 cents rate, this is the amount of property tax you were paying. In 2012, with the new rate, your assessment changed, the rate changes, and in this case, the property taxes actually went down some. The actual property tax for 2012 won't be set for several months. These are just examples of rates. So, what are the results we had from the revaluation? Basically, there's going to be three different types. There's going to be certain taxpayers whose property was undervalued before the revaluation. They're going to be paying a larger burden of the taxes than they were in the past. There's going to be taxpayers whose houses are actually overvalued. Again, they'll be paying a lesser share of the burden. And there's also going to be taxpayers whose property were accurately reported. And in the estimates we usually get, it's a third, a third, a third. Now the ratio I was referring to is the sales ratio. Before the revaluation, it was 48.64%. What that is, in 1997, when we had the last revaluation, everybody's home was set at 100% of market value. As sales occur, the county registers these sales, and they look at the difference between the sale price and the assessed value. And every time the sale price is higher, it drives our ratio down. So basically, if your home was valued at $250,000 before the revaluation, if you take our sales ratio into effect, really the market value of your home last year was $514,000. That's the number you really want to compare to the new value you received on the green assessment card you got in the mail about a week or two ago. This was the old, this is the new. If you take that ratio and apply it to your old amount and you come close to that new amount, you're right in line to where you should have been. And just while we're talking about the green cards, one comment at that. Everyone calls January 30th. I didn't get my green card yet. I can't do my taxes. My account needs it for my taxes. Those green assessment cards are not a tax record. Nothing on that card states what you paid in taxes. It's simply an information tool for you to let you know what the value of your home is. If you look on here, all it does is let you know what your taxes were last year. Doesn't state whether you paid them, doesn't state if you had any deductions, senior, veteran, homestead rebates, property tax reimbursements. If you're ever called to an audit and you go to present this as a tax record, it's not. You need to keep track of what you actually paid for your property taxes. We talked about how the ratio is determined. And again, it doesn't take into account any sales that may be from a husband and wife or to a child where it's only for $1. Those sales get thrown out. They won't be counted when they determine the ratio. And again, we only did the revaluation because it was something that was ordered upon us by the municipality. It is something that's very expensive. It cost the township about $360,000. So it's not. Some of the benefits of the revaluation is there's always confusion when homeowners or business people, properties, try to compare tax rates. You may look at your rate compared to 3 or 4 different towns, and it's really not a fair comparison because you don't know what the ratio of those other towns are. That's why there's a general tax rate and effective tax rate that I'll go over on the next slide. And the other benefit is it aids in the defense of tax appeals. When corporations, businesses in town file an appeal, one of the things they point to is the ratio is 48%. I'm no longer paying my fair share. If you bought a home 10 years ago, it doubled in value. If you bought a business 10 years ago, odds are it didn't increase in value at all. So they use this ratio against us when they file their tax appeal. And it's something that we can't defend because it's black and white. The main thing your taxes are going to be applied against, because like I said, our 15 million basically stays around 15 million, is the rateable base. And unfortunately, over the last 3 years, our rateable base has been declining. You can see here at its peak, we were over $2 billion, and currently we're only at $1,975,000,000. What that means is even if the tax rate, the tax amount to be raised stayed flat, every homeowner is still going to be paying more because there's less of a pool to apply the tax ratio to. One of the other problems we face is commercial properties versus residential properties. A commercial property will pay the full share of the taxes, even though they have no drain on our school system or a lot of our municipal services. And again, over the last few years, residential properties have increased, and unfortunately, commercial properties have decreased. One of the main reasons they've decreased is tax appeals. And the way that hurts the township and your taxes is basically if we collect $1 in taxes, you see the green, the 25%, is the only amount we keep. We pay out the rest of the 75 cents to the other districts, fire, school, county. If somebody wins a tax appeal, we still have to pay them back the full $1, even though we only collected 25 cents of it. Now, when I was referring to general versus effective tax rates, the general rate is the rate that's on your tax bill. It's what's applied against your assessed value to come up with your taxes. If you look at the 39 municipalities in Morris County, and you just look at tax rate alone, you would think Hanover was horrible, 32 out of 39. But when you apply the ratio to it to come up with the effective tax rate, we actually rank 4th out of the 39 counties. That's why the closer everyone is to 100%, the less confusion this causes. And again, just in summary, the determination for the revaluation is again set by the county. The goal is to set everyone's property at 100% of market value. 1/3 of the people are probably going to increase a little, 1/3 are going to decrease, and about 1/3 are going to stay the same. Thank you.
Now that you're all glassy-eyed, Silvio, that was good. No, that really was. And Silvio, a financial officer, covered a lot of areas for you, and it might have cleared up a lot of questions that you might have. The simple fact is fundamental. We have not had a revaluation of our properties in, 12 years now?
1997.
1997. So in 1997, your property was valued at 100% of its value in 1997, and hypothetically, Silvio's using a $250,000 or $250,000 house, $250,000 house. But in 1998, as your property appreciated, right, the value went up, and we applied this word that Silvio's using, a ratio, to keep you at that 100%. So the equity of your property went up, and in order to keep you at 100%, we had to make a determination in a ratio of how much it went up. That was your ratio. If your property went up, by 2%, 3%, 4%. So now we come up to 2012, and by the time of this valuation, we had to apply 48% times your property value of 1997 in order to get you to what we believe was 100%. So far, so good? Okay. Now, we want to get rid of this ratio. We want to get rid of all this stuff. So what we do is we hire this big, expensive firm. They come out. They ask to see your house. They walk around with this chart. He comes back and he tells you at 100% what he believes your house is worth on today's market. And once having done that, it's going to now be the obligation of this township committee when it gets done with its budget, based upon the ratables that we've lost, and as we know in Hanover, we've lost a significant amount of ratables. It's going to be the responsibility of this committee, once it strikes its budget, is to strike the rate, for you. And that will tell our residents how many of us will get a reduction in property taxes, and that's that third, and that Sobio showed you. A third of us may realize a reduction, a third of us might be staying the same, and a third of us might increase in taxes. I can't tell you with any sense of comfort that that all of our taxes will be lowered by this, because I know the effect of the lost ratables that we had over the last few years. It is no secret, $2.5 million worth of ratables left us when Lucent, Alcatel left us, Bear Stearns left us, lost ratables, Barclays Bank, etc. I can go down a whole litany of them, and plus the effect of tax appeals, coming in for devaluation of property. So all of that, it has an effect on the outcome of what this town's worth is. At one point, at 100%, we were probably over $4 billion. Want to write me a check for $4 billion, you can have Hanover. But now we're under that. Sylvia, you stopped me along the way here. We're under that, and the differential of that is what's known as lost ratables. And we have to compound that in as well. Trying to keep that as simple as possible. I hope everybody stayed on board. Your eyes aren't closing yet, so I guess we did okay. But if you do have any questions, and we do have the financial officer here, feel free, please go to the podium if you do have a question, right back here there, and tell us your name and address for our record, and then fire away.
My name is Jim Martin, 12 Fanick Road. My only question basically is, there's a separation between the house and the land.
Yes.
Is the land in Hanover the same rate for every square, no matter where you live in this town?
Just the land value itself?
Land.
When they do the revaluation, the team that goes out, depending, they do neighborhoods separately. It does depend where you're located, what type of, how much land you have to your home. There's different things they take into account. Normally, the land is land, but it does depend on a few minor things.
And
Okay, so my location, my land price, even though I have the same lot as this young lady, could be a different rate.
Yes.
If I might just add, though, the tax court has said the breakout between, land and your improvements, the court only looks at the total. They say it's almost antiquated to break it out, because the bottom line is you can't appeal just your land or just your improvement. What you always look at is that total. That's the value, because that allocation between land and improvement, it's not recognized as much as that bottom line number. That's the key to the fairness in the process. Because you're right, otherwise it gets a little bit complicated to say, I have a piece of land, my neighbor does, or improvements. It's that overall number the courts have said is what they look at.
So my total number could be more than her number, but my land could be less. So that would mean my house is worth more, basically.
But they look at it in total.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, that years ago, that land and improvement was broken out, but it's not recognized because of that. It's the overall number. Now, if you say my assessment is higher than my neighbor's, my overall value, even there, the courts say, well, that could mean your neighbor's value is too low, and yours is, or as you may say, too high. But that's why you also look at, and the way this whole process is driven, it's driven on the sales. You compare not assessments, but you look at your value to what the sales are, and that's the way you try to adjust and see if it's fair.
Thank you.
This Saturday, the Township Committee will meet in special session for budget. That usually takes us a good part of the day, and once we're complete with the budget, we'll have a better idea, because I'm sure everyone's anxious to know what the tax rate's going to be, and shortly after that, we'll be able to come up with a more accurate idea of what the effect of the rate will be on you. Name and address.
Yes, Ruth Nielsen, 46 Ridge Road. I have a few questions. I understand that garbage collection in my neighborhood is going to go from 2 times a week to 1 time. Is that true?
If it's going to be on the, where are you?
Yeah, I
on
don't
the
have
new
the-
truck?
If it's going to be on the new routes,
new
yes,
truck?
that is correct. The new garbage can that the township will provide. Either, I think it's 66 or 95 gallons.
You know, we're going from a different type of garbage collection.
Have you bought this truck?
Yes.
Yes.
And how much did it cost?
So do you have that number?
285?
465,000.
That included the cans.
Truck and cans, 465.
465 is the number for truck and cans. Is that about right?
It was
sir?
about 375 for the truck and another 90 for the cans.
Yeah.
And what is the reason for doing this?
Well, we're changing the way we're going to deliver this kind of
Why?
service to the township.
Why are we doing this?
Yeah, why am I going from 2 collections a week to 1? And is that true for all the members here on the council?
Well, I'll
Are
be
you all
to
going to
one.
have garbage collections of once a week instead of twice?
Yes, it's a new method. that
You
we're-
have it once a week? You will be having it once a week instead of twice?
We're phasing it in. I mean, to be fair, there'll be sections of our town, inclusive of mine, that will be once a week, and we'll have our choice of either, I think it's 60 or 90.
60 or 90.
60 or 90 gallon cans. Presently at my home, for instance, my family uses 2 33-gallon cans that we put out twice a week. We'll be putting out either a 60-gallon can or a 90 that the township will provide you once a week. It'll be an automated system to pick that up as it comes around.
If I might, Mayor, one of the key reasons for the introduction of an automated truck is to help reduce the injuries that we have with a 3-man crew. The automated truck will have 1 driver. He'll be able to operate the whole truck. That will release the 2 sanitation men to other duties in the road division. But one of the chief problems we face is with manpower. When they get off the truck, getting back on the truck, we've had several significant injuries, and that adds to our workers' compensation costs. So what is driving this, in part, is the fact to help to reduce injuries by preventing those injuries from happening.
What is the saving going to be by spending $375,000 for these trucks? How many trucks are you going to have to buy?
This truck will do about 1/3 more of the collection in the same amount of time. If I'm correct, it'll do something in the neighborhood of 900 homes per session. There'll be efficiencies there. There'll be efficiencies in the fact that we will only have 1 operator for the truck. There won't be 3 operators on the truck, so there's 2 salaries involved here. It doesn't mean that those men won't be appointed to some other area in Public Works, and the safety factor and the salaries, the workman's compensation savings that we'll intend to realize in that should be significant as well. We pay workman's compensation, as you might realize, based upon the injury rates that we have here. So if we can cut down on those significantly, we can almost bring our workman's compensation claims down to 0 or payments.
How do you know this is going to be faster? Here the truck has to drive down the street on one way and then turn around and go back down the street again.
We've-
So instead of
Yeah.
one trip down the street,
answer that.
it's making 2 trips down the street.
We've examined all of these questions, but go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, I just to re-examine that, it was brought to our attention that some of the trucks do that slalom course, as we're told.
They have to.
No, that's going to be stopped because
This
that's
truck
just
is
too
going to
dangerous.
this truck is going to take from both
She's
sides of the
speaking about
street?
the one-arm truck.
The one-arm truck is going to have to go down to one side and up the other, and
Right.
that's what the current trucks are going to have to do because it's not safe. We've determined that it's not safe. We almost killed somebody doing it. I requested that be reviewed in our safety committee. I hope they've addressed it, but that is just an unsafe practice.
Your trucks now go down the street once. They don't go down and back again. They go down most streets, unless it's a main street like Bee Meadow, they go down the street once and they pick up both sides of the street.
The rate at which the garbage is picked up is fairly efficient. They'll be able to do that.
It's efficient now,
Yeah, the trucks
It's
are
twice
a
a
lot
week.
more efficient.
and you're going to
I
make it.
don't believe that to be efficient when we're injuring our employees that way. I really don't. One of
What
them
has,
damn near
what has the
killed
cost
somebody.
been in injuries? Workman's comp for the past, say, 2011?
I know we've examined this in
don't
previous
have those
sessions.
numbers now.
We weren't prepared to answer all these questions. We were, and we went through exhaustive meetings with this, but I don't recall the number off the top of my head. I'm sorry. We can get it for you.
Okay,
You know, we've studied this and discussed this for months, I believe.
because I don't recall that there was an open discussion with the public on this.
Oh,
There
yes.
was.
There
There was.
many.
And when was
In fact,
that?
we have it on tape.
I'm sure you have it on tape.
Back in November and,
Lively sessions, yes.
November.
Yes, long, lively sessions.
Okay, you're going to be having these huge garbage cans sitting outside all week. This is better? I mean, you're talking about a 90-gallon garbage can, right?
Correct, yes. What do you mean outside? It's not going to be at the street, it's going to be,
Right, I mean, but people can't put this into their garage. It's going to be sitting outside.
It's a sealed unit, but
right, it is a sealed unit, but some
Yeah.
people keep their garbage cans outside now. I
it
keep
has
mine
an
inside, and I plan to keep it
automatic
inside.
top, but it's a sealed top. It's conceivable that the 60-gallon could go into the garage. I'm anticipating that my 60-gallon will go in my garage.
My
Eliminate
car's
the
in the garage.
233s. If you had a 90, I would expect you'd probably have it outside in an area of the driveway.
maybe on the side.
Maybe on the side of the house, as Joe says, yeah. But it has a sealed, we asked about animals getting into the container or anything like that. We saw the containers, and by the way, you'll be able to see them yourself. We're going to have we had them available for a while.
I've seen them, because I've seen them in other states
Yeah.
and so on.
But they
But,
are sealed, so
I just think it would be very difficult for some elderly people to be taking this 90
Yes,
gallons.
it would be, yeah, but we were going to offer a smaller one, a 65-gallon size. We've had them at the seniors meeting. We brought them down there for them to,
they have
See.
large wheels.
they're large, they're more stable than the
Right.
garbage cans that you would drag out or.
Just come over to my house and watch me take it down my driveway.
You have one?
No, I have a driveway that's about a 45-degree incline.
Okay.
I'm
Right.
not making light of that, but I think that it was something that I even considered. If I'm going to be having to take down a 90-gallon can that's full. But, and some good questions were asked. One woman had asked, well, if I have a 90-gallon can, I can't manage it. Well, the answer is, how much refuse are you putting out now? How much sanitation are you putting out now? Well, I'm only putting out maybe 20 or 30 gallons worth of refuse. Well, because you have a 90, doesn't mean that you're going to fill it. It's going to
Right.
be the same amount of refuse. The decision, I think, for most of us is, do we want the smaller can or the larger can? So I think that's going to be the bigger decision for you right now.
Well, I just see it as a loss in service, because instead of twice a week, now you're going to be once a week. I think that's a loss of service. It also was brought to my attention, you now have GPS units in the garbage trucks?
Yes, they've been phased.
Have they ever been lost?
The garbage trucks, I don't think we've lost one yet, have we, Joe? A garbage truck?
Why-
No. Basically,
Lost?
the GPS.
Yeah, why have
No,
a
lost,
GPS
meaning
in a
we can't
garbage
find
truck?
them.
Oh,
No, the garbage trucks, all the vehicles.
I mean, there's
believe in the
an
township have
expense
been-
we don't need.
like that old TV program, Car 52, where are you?
The idea is to track vehicles to make sure that the employees are doing their jobs and are where they're supposed to be at any given time, at any location. I mean, if you remember the snowstorm from last year in
Mhm.
New York City, I mean, there were a lot of allegations made that somewhere, somehow, those snow plows got lost somewhere. And in fact, the city of New York has spent now millions of dollars to install these GPS systems in there to make sure that there is efficiency and productivity in the delivery of services. And that's what it's meant. It's meant so that we don't have a truck going out of Hanover Township and doing something it shouldn't be doing. So it's a protection for the Township of Hanover to have those GPS units in those vehicles.
Because they had problems in New York City last year, you put GPS
So, I'm
in
just using
Hanover
that-
Township?
No, ma'am. I'm using that as an example.
You've
Oh,
had a
but
problem
yeah.
with the collection here in town, that the people have not been doing their job?
No,
that's not
no,
true.
actually, no, so with the GPS and the garbage trucks, with the new system, it actually complement each other, so we can plan routes better to make sure that we're using the most efficient routes we can do.
It gives you
I
a
mean, it
better
gives a lot
idea
of-
how quickly the garbage is being picked up.
There's a lot of tools we can use it for. It's an excellent tool for
What was the
efficiency.
cost for putting GPS in the garbage trucks?
Would anybody have that number? I don't have that number, ma'am.
I don't have just by garbage trucks, total vehicles, $20,000.
What other vehicles?
Several of the township vehicles, DPW vehicles, police vehicles, administration vehicles, that we covered
So all vehicles in the town have GPS?
Just about.
about 75 to 80% was what we could afford out of the $20,000 last year to do.
Okay. Okay, I really don't think this is an improvement, having garbage pick up just once a week instead of twice a week. And I guess we don't have a choice.
Well, we hope it'll be reflected in a better tax rate for all of us citizens. We know we're under a lot of constrictions here, working with 2% cap, et cetera, and we certainly don't want to cut our staff any further if we do not have to. But we are looking at other ways of efficiencies, be it doing the same job with less manpower or doing shared jobs, et cetera, shared services, et cetera. So we're going to do all we can, try and still provide a level of services, working under the cap regulations.
One other point that may be worth noting is that there was a garbage truck that needed to be replaced. That was the genesis of this whole thing. We didn't just decide to go out and buy an expensive garbage truck and see whether we might be able to save money. The point was that we had a garbage truck that needed to be retired and taken out of service. So should we have bought a comparable truck that required 3 men to operate, or should we look at this new technology that only requires 1 operator, can handle a bigger can, cut back? So there was a whole litany of reasons that we went this route, and they were discussed quite extensively back in that November-December timeframe.
Sir?
Tom Russamano with Cedar Knolls. In regards to the 1/3, Silvio, of taxpayers that may get an increase,
Yes.
are you bound by the state's 2% mandate?
2% overall, not by individual homeowner.
It's not, so
So
it's
if we
not,
raise $15 million,
so in other words,
2% is based on that, not
it's
on if you
overall.
pay $10,000
Okay.
yourself.
all right, so the rate can go up more than,
Some people could go up 4, some people could go down 1.
right, okay.
It's on the total
So it's
number.
overall.
Yes, sir.
Now, there's another statement you made that I've heard you say it a couple times, something to the effect that if you collect 50% of the taxes, you still have to pay 100% to the county or something. Could you
If you-
clarify that?
Once you say your taxes were $1,000, we collect that $1,000 from you. We keep $250 for municipal purposes. We give $500 to the schools, $100 to the fire department, $100 to the county. If you win a tax appeal, we have to give you back that $1,000. Nobody else gives you back their share. We give you back the whole 1,000 ourselves. It comes out of our pocket.
Why?
State law. That's the way.
Is it a law or is it just something?
No, that's the way it works.
Well,
It's out of our control. That's
whose control is it? That's the thing.
that's the way the government has it established.
Yet there actually was legislation introduced to try to address that, and it hasn't been passed yet.
The schools set their budget. They know what they need. We have to get, even if you don't pay us your taxes, we still have to give the school what they require. So the school's not going to give us back anything. The county does give us a credit the following year. But the other districts, once they get their money, it's theirs.
Okay. Just one other thing. this young lady brought up the garbage thing. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but these garbage cans that you're going to distribute, do they belong to the homeowner or
They belong to the township.
okay,
We'll provide them for you. They belong to the township.
are you going to fix them if they break?
Will they be replaced if they're worn or
As long
broken?
as
If they're-
there was,
if they're-
as long as there was
Normal
no
wear.
carelessness, there was normal wear and tear. And of course, if it's legitimate, we'll certainly fix them, absolutely.
Okay. I've been using the same can for 30 years now. Will they
Boy.
last me 30 years?
It's not one of my Rubbermaids.
They're pretty durable.
Man.
Tell us where you bought that?
It's a good can. You still got the galvanized ones. Boy, oh boy. No, Rubbermaid didn't make it. Judy, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
Okay, Judy Ratty, 27 Malapartis Road, Whippany. Excuse me. Yeah, I have a different take on the GPS systems, and that is, it's a matter of safety also. If one of your vehicles, say a police car, if something happens, you'll know, immediately where that car is. You know, immediately if one of your township vehicles runs off the road. I think it's a really kind of a safety issue for the whole township, anybody who's driving a vehicle in town. So that's why I really favor the GPS systems. So that's another type of a spin on it. But
gives us a lot of data, not just where you are, but it'll give us a lot
Yeah,
of
that
time
too.
data, a lot of efficiency data, that we can get from that. Good.
Right, and yeah, it does, and like I said, also the safety factor is really a great thing. So now my favorite subject, taxes. Probably to make it more simplified, if I have a piece of property in town, empty piece of property, I could have it in a really desirable location or maybe a not so desirable location. We know that all throughout town, if I have an acre of property, it can't be sold for the same amount of money all throughout town. So the taxes are assessed on the land. Now on the house, when they do the assessment of the taxes on the house, it's based upon square footage, number of bathrooms, modernization,
Neighborhood
et cetera.
influence.
So that's why they're separate. However, you're right, in the neighborhood, if you have a house, a nice piece of property, and a beautiful house, you have the equalization of sales within that neighborhood determines what your assessed value would be. But I have a question for Silvio, and this is to simplify how someone can determine which of those thirds they're in. Now, there's a number that I can multiply my current assessment by.
If you take your old assessment,
Okay, go ahead.
you divide it by .4864. That was our old sales ratio.
Well, I want to multiply it by something to get 100%.
But if you divide it by the 48.64,
Okay,
and it comes close to your new assessment, if it's higher, the third is going to pay higher taxes. If it's lower, you're the third's maybe paying a lower
okay. If my house is assessed at $200,000
current.
currently, what would I do?
Take your old assessment.
That's my current assessment,
You
$200,000.
take your 2011 assessment.
Right.
Divide it by .4864.
0.4864.
So you should come up around 400, close to 400,000.
411,000. Okay.
Compare that number to the assessment you just received, and you know where you stand.
Okay. So could you clarify that? Because that's a really simple thing to understand. If you take your current assessment, your 2011 assessment that you've gotten on that little card you received in your mail, multiply that by,
Divide it by.
divide it by .4864. Now, if that is equal to the assessment, the new assessment on your little card, your
Stay
taxes are
directly
flat. If that is less than what is on your card for the 2012 year, then
You're probably going to pay a little less.
you pay a little less. And if it's more than that, you're going to pay more.
You're
Now
right.
but we have to tell people, because people are saying, oh, no, my taxes are lower. That's if everything were to stay
That's if everything
equal.
stayed constant. We did lose ratables.
We
again.
lost revenue,
In taxes, in our,
Right.
everybody's budget is most likely going to go up,
yeah, a little,
so
not more than 2% overall.
overall.
But because we lost revenue, and then you're going to have your meeting on Saturday, so you're going to probably keep that nice and flat. But that's an easy way to determine if you're in what third you're
third you
in.
drop in.
So, okay, thank you very much.
I mean, ideally, if everything was the same in that we didn't lose any ratables and we you know, had the same incomes that we
Right.
had there, and we had no tax appeals are another major factor.
Sure.
And some of these tax appeals, we're settling over time.
Right.
Not to get into specific names, but some, you know, large hotels and large other industries in this town have had successful tax appeals. We had 90 last year. And rather than just write a check on these tax appeals at one time, we work out different terms and negotiate them out. So we have to take in the fact of what our losses were toward appeals, what our losses, and that really comes out as part of our loss ratable base anyway. You know, the value of a ratable base, and that's going to have the, that's going to be the effect. That's
Are we
be the
going to take a big hit this year on any appeals?
It's not that we took a big hit this year, but I think we finally came to the last appeal on the large property of Lucent Alcatel. I think that was our last.
Okay.
And
They have reappealed again.
they have yeah. Well,
Oh, okay, thank you.
we're still there.
Okay,
We're
thanks.
still fighting the fight,
And
Okay.
Mayor,
as other towns are, with all this.
Mayor, if I may just add, for the residents that say, well, that going through that formula, my assessment went up.
Yeah.
There's sometimes, so the reasons that we see over time, the three that I always hear is, number one, just you're in a neighborhood that has it's held its value or it's appreciated more rapidly than other neighborhoods, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's a good thing. The second thing or issue is sometimes the old records, that when they come out to measure, they weren't precise. So there's more square footage or something to that effect. You can always look at your record card before you just think, well, my taxes are going up. There's a good reason for it. And third, what happens is sometimes you do that bathroom addition or the renovation of the kitchen, and maybe the permits weren't closed, whatever it might be, but versus what it was in 1996, that wasn't picked up necessarily by the tax process, the assessment process, and now it is. Because sometimes
true.
we've seen residents come in and say, I can't believe how much more, but, well, did you know the last time for the last 10 years, you didn't have a kitchen or a finished basement on your record card? So there's usually a
You
reason
closed off
for
that back porch and made it usable space. It's,
Right.
And you
you
forgot
know,
to get the
the
permit.
flag dropped.
Yeah,
or you
so,
forgot
uh,
to get, or you forgot to get the permit.
Does
yes.
it need a building permit for that?
All this is a factor.
supposed to.
We've had some homes that sold, and I would say at depressed sales, state of the economy, et cetera. So, you know, a home that in good times, you know, might have been $500,000, you know, probably went 100,000 or better under that. Now, does it affect my house? I think so, to some degree. Sometimes the tax assessor looks at that and calls it an exceptional sale and doesn't take it into consideration. But if there's enough of it, it does have an effect on the property on that block.
And one other item, last time we had the revaluation, if you didn't let the person in your house, they estimated what they thought was in your house.
Yeah.
When they went back this time, maybe you let them in, now they really know what was in your house, so maybe they overestimated last time because you didn't let them in. That's another reason that the numbers change.
Yeah, I have a question for what you were saying. Suppose a person has made improvements on their house and they haven't had a building permit. Is there any fine for that?
Oh, yes. I
And
mean, if
when
you,
they did the reevaluation and they find out there's a new kitchen or there's an enclosed porch or something, and there
A lot of things you
wasn't?
do inside, nobody sees, so sometimes you do forget to get a permit, and nobody knows you did.
Generally, to answer your
You
question.
forget to get a permit?
I don't think,
I'm being nice.
no, I
But I
think,
mean, are there ramifications for people who do not have building permits other than their fire insurance
let's say if the
isn't valid?
township is aware of an improvement that you made to your home, et cetera, without a permit, they do have the prerogative to issue a fine, yes. But
Do they?
as the financial officer just said, many of us, you know, we update the kitchen, change the cabinets, buy new appliances, well, that's one thing, but we start moving walls, et cetera, it
That's
becomes
different.
another, yeah.
Yeah, but if you're making structural changes, you
Structural
need a
change.
building permit. And if people do not get a building permit, and when you reevaluate the house and you see that there is structural change, new bathroom or whatever,
I
Are there
don't think there's a
ramifications
connection
for that?
between the evaluation process and the enforcement of the
No,
building
no,
department.
Yeah, I
One's
think this is-
enforcement, right, one's
Right,
code
I don't
enforcement.
think they
Right.
work together on this. This process for evaluation is separate from
Separate from that.
enforcement from
And
building
so
code.
there's no correlation between the
No.
two?
I don't believe so,
When it
unless
does
an
get
assessor
caught-
came up and found a house that's 3 times the size, he may ask a question, where
But-
these additions come from, but I don't
But
think
he
there's
doesn't
any,
check to know if there's a building permit involved in that?
I don't think there's
Okay.
any research done, or we didn't hire these people to do that.
Yeah, the building permit serves several purposes. One of the purposes of the building permit is to inform the township that you've made some improvement of the house. You put a new bathroom in or whatever, and they note that, and it's note on your property card that what you've done. So, in essence,
There's also
When you-
benefits of the building permits in terms of safety, in terms of,
Well, code,
if you
code.
file for a permit and you've had work done in your house, an inspector will actually come out and inspect it and evaluate it to ensure that it's done according to the code. So there's a benefit to the homeowner when they're having work done to notify the township that it's being done to promote safety of their home.
electrical, plumbing.
It was also pointed out here, income for the town is in fees,
Correct,
and that's a fee that someone's not paying.
correct.
When you go to sell your house, it does
That's-
get caught a lot, and before they issue a certificate of occupancy to sell your home, if they see you redid your basement, added something, they'll make you pay the fees then. And I'm not sure if they do or don't enforce a fine, I'm not sure how the building department handles it.
Yeah,
But
a lot
that's
of-
when they catch a lot of it, if you go to
Yeah, a
sell,
lot of-
and all of a sudden there's something that was never there, you're gonna have to pay the fees definitely then.
You'll find that in the real estate activity of selling a house now, the realtor or the buyer is going to ask to see all of the permits, building permits that you had on the house. I keep a file of everything that I do. I recommend that every homeowner does. Because at some point, unless you live in Hanover Township to the end of the earth, when you go to sell the house, you're going to be asked for that material, and it gets awkward for you then, Any other questions or any other comments from the public at this time? Nevertheless, the motion to close, even though we
So
didn't
moved.
open. Okay,
Second.
Seconded? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Very good. Mr. Administrator.
Okay, as we continue with, we have the approval of the Township Committee regular meeting of December 19th, 2011. May we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
So moved by
Second.
Mr. Pola, seconded by Mr. Faramasca. On roll call, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Pola.
Aye.
And Mr. Franciola.
Aye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 ordinances for introduction this evening. First is docketed as ordinance number 6-12. This is an ordinance of the Township Committee of the Township of Hanover, reducing the 2 cent per $100 of assessed valuation dedicated open space trust fund rate to 1/2 cent per $100 of assessed valuation during calendar year 2012 only, and further authorizing the Township's Chief Municipal Finance Officer to collect the 1/2 cent dedicated tax. This ordinance will be further considered for public hearing and final passage at the Township Committee meeting on the 8th of March at 8:30 p.m. here in the main meeting room. And at that time, anyone wishing to be heard concerning the ordinance will be given the opportunity to speak. The ordinance and the notice of introduction will appear in full in the daily record in accordance with law. May we now have a motion for introduction?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Schleifer, seconded by Mr. Pola. On roll call for introduction, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Pola.
Aye.
And Mr. Franciola.
Aye.
So introduced.
Jeff, could you say something about the open space rate? The one main reason with the open space rate is, as we looked at before, how all the tax rates will be adjusted because of revaluation. The open space rate would not be adjusted. So if we left it flat, everyone's open space rate would triple from what it was last year. That's one of the reasons why it's being adjusted.
Okay, as we continue, the next ordinance is docketed as ordinance number 7-12. This authorizes a lease agreement with the Hanover Township Little League Incorporated for the operation of the Blackbrook Park concession stand commencing April 21st, 2012 through August 31st, 2012. This ordinance as well will be considered for public hearing and final passage at the March 8th meeting of the Township Committee at 8:30 p.m. here in the main meeting room of the Municipal Building. And at that time, any person wishing to be heard concerning the ordinance will be given the opportunity to speak. The ordinance and the notice of introduction will be published in full in the Daily Record in accordance with law. We now have a motion on introduction.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Pola,
Second?
second by Mr. Bruno. On roll call for introduction, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramos.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Pola.
Aye.
And Mr. Franciola.
Aye.
So introduced. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we continue with the next portion of business, we have resolutions as a consent agenda. We have two additional resolutions which do not appear on the agenda, but were discussed in conference work session by the Township Committee. And those two resolutions are as follows. The resolution of the Township Committee retaining the services of Alfred's Auctions Incorporated to conduct the sale of township personal property no longer needed for public use via the Internet, all in accordance with the local public contracts law at NJSA 40A 11-36, and pursuant to state contract number A 789361, and further authorizing the mayor and township clerk to execute an online auction contract. The second resolution is a resolution of the Township Committee authorizing Alfred's Auctions to conduct an online public auction of township personal property no longer needed for public use via the Internet, commencing on Monday, March the 5th, and ending on Sunday, March 18th, all in accordance with NJSA 40A:11-36, and pursuant to the state contract held by Alfred's Auction, and that state contract number is A 78936. Are there any questions concerning any of the resolutions by consent agenda?
None?
Make a motion.
We have a motion by
Motion.
Mr. Faramasca,
Second?
second by Mr. Francioli. On roll call for approval, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Pola.
Aye.
And Mr. Franciola.
Aye.
And the requirement for the online auction is something that the state of New Jersey is recommending, strongly recommending for all municipalities in the state. And in fact, one of the best management practices that we're required to comply with, and we certainly get points deducted from state aid, is that we do online auctions. So as much as it is a recommendation, it's also kind of mandatory that we do it. Okay, as we continue with the agenda, ladies and gentlemen, we have raffle and bingo applications as follows. Raffle application 2539, the Red Oak School Incorporated, for an off-premise raffle on the 21st of April at the Birchwood Manor between 8:30 and 9:30 p.m. Bingo application 2540, Central Avenue School Parent-Teacher Organization, for a bingo night on the 29th of March at the Ukrainian Cultural Center between 7 and 10 p.m. Raffle application 2541, Jersey Battered Women's Services Incorporated, for 50/50 on-premise on the 24th of March at the Ukrainian Cultural Center between 7 and 10 p.m. And raffle application 2542, Jersey Battered Women's Services Incorporated, for a tricky trade, also on the 24th of March at the Ukrainian Cultural Center between 7 and 10 p.m. May we have a motion on the approval of the raffle and bingo application?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Capola.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bruno. And roll call, Mr. Schleifer.
Aye.
Mr. Faramasca.
Aye.
Mr. Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Capola.
Aye.
And Mr. Francioli.
Aye.
So approved. Mr. Chairman, members of the Township Committee, that clears the agenda of the Business Administrator, Township Clerk, and I
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. At this time, gentlemen, is there any other business from the Township Committee?
Yeah, I've got a report.
John?
Yes, the Environmental Commission, there's a green team associated with the Environmental Commission, and the green team really is the action team of the Environmental Commission. They're the group of people that actually go out and implement many of the initiatives that take place within the Environmental Commission. They're seeking volunteers. All members of the community are welcome to become members of the green team. The green team meets the first Monday of the month in the library at 7 p.m. Please consider volunteering some of your time. You don't need to go to it each month, but we do recommend you get involved and help make a difference. Second point I'd like to alert everyone about is the Economic Development Advisory Council. EDAC, for short, is working very closely with the Planning Board in terms of marketing the master plan. The township has a master plan designed to encourage redevelopment within Hanover Township. Corridors that have been established for redevelopment within the township. They are as follows: Route 10, South Jefferson Road, Ridgedale Avenue, and the Hanover Avenue corridor. Plans are underway for special programming throughout the springtime to encourage broker open houses, developers meetings, which will be noticed and will normally held in this room. So I just want to give everyone information that EDAC is working very closely on the implementation side, helping to market the master plan within Hanover Township.
John, thank you. This is the first, second, third, we're into the third year of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, and this is comprised of various professionals within the community, corporate sector, real estate sectors, etc. To say they're doing a yeoman job of trying to move us forward is an understatement. Their mission has been restated this year. It's crystal clear. It's to market Hanover Township. They're really focused on that. They're going about it aggressively. And I think in the near term, with some of the new neighbors that we're going to be having coming into our township soon, it's attracting interest by a lot of other good brands, let me put it that way. So I'm encouraged, and I think that we see, as I say, the light through the tunnel. I think we see us moving toward building back up our rateable base in the near term. So I'm not saying it's going to be tomorrow. I'm not going to say it's this budget or a year from now, but certainly my near term might be a 3 to 5 year window, or we're back to where we were, and that's encouraging, and that's a lot better than other communities are doing. We're still in a very positive way here in Hanover. We still can make the claim that we have no bonded debt, and we're one of the few communities in Morris County that can still say that. So we're very pleased in that. Is there any other member of the community that'd like to comment? George?
Yeah, I would. The one thing about as far as the Board of Education goes, I don't know if folks have heard that the governor signed a bill which will move the election, if so desired, for the school board election to November. Right now in Morris County, which has 39 districts, 32 have opted to move to November. The townships that have not right now, of which Hanover Township is one, first one is Chatham Borough and Chatham Township. They vote together as one. Hanover Township, Mendham Township, Morristown, Mountain Lakes, Pequannock, and Riverdale. The thing is that the Whippany Park High School and the regional school have opted to move to November. So for those districts that have, they'll be put on the same ballot as the presidential and every other local and state election come November. But as far as Hanover Township, folks hearing about this move, the K-8 district has remained for this year to stay here in Hanover Township, have their election in April. Those who have moved have a 4-year commitment. Once you make the commitment to move, you're obligated for 4 years. They're obviously concerned, if your budget's within the 2% cap, it doesn't have to be on a ballot anyhow, but if it exceeds that 2%, then that incremental amount will have to go on the budget. As another point that was noted is, there's also legislation and talk, rather, going on about moving a fire commission election into November. So that's, again, it's just a little bit of talk that's going on. My only concern that I would have personally is it's going to be one busy ballot. And, hopefully people are going to be able to understand.
We spent a little more time in the voter's machine, huh?
Oh, yeah.
From that standpoint. Any other
Mr. Mayor, we have one item, if I may. The Substance Awareness Committee is going to be sponsoring their second Hanover Youth Night. That'll be this Saturday evening over at the Recreation Center, and that'll be for our middle school students to give them an alternative night of fun and games. DJ will be there and so forth, and there are several members of the committee that are really spearheading these. So it looks like we'll be trying to do these on a monthly basis and targeting a different age group each time. The first one was done in December. We had the kindergarten through second graders, and now we're going to be sponsoring this night for the middle schoolers. So based on the initial response, we had a very good turnout. We expect another good turnout Saturday, and we want to thank all the members of Substance Awareness for volunteering their time for this very worthwhile endeavor.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add one point. Because you had this long conversation, rather this discussion this evening on the new garbage cans that we're receiving, folks should also understand that.
Rory, on March 28th, we'll be holding once again, I think it's the second annual, a Tricky Tray. Very popular, well attended. It's $15 for tickets, and your support of the library would be appreciated. So just March 28th, note it in your calendars. We'd love to see you there. Also this week, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't comment that we had a tragic event take place in the township. We had an incident whereby two young ladies were injured in a vehicle accident, and one quite seriously. We're very concerned over that, and certainly our prayers and our hearts go out to the families involved in something like this. I think the Township Committee will be giving serious consideration to that matter as it affects the schools in the year ahead, so we'll go from there. Any other comment from committee?
There was a healing mass.
George, that's your third one, that's it.
Yes. There was a healing mass Wednesday night that was very well attended, so.
Yeah,
prayers
well,
are out for
yeah.
these.
Adelaide and Mercy.
Yeah. Okay. Motion, once again, to open the meeting to the public. For any-
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the floor once again is open. If anyone would like to address the Township Committee, they may do so from the podium. Give us your name and address for the record. You want to talk from there?
Just a quick question on the Alfred's auction. Is that open to the public, Joe?
It'll be on the internet, and it's open to anyone who wants to bid.
And does it go, www.alfreds.com or something?
They're going to go live probably next Monday with a notice on the internet, and they'll give all the particulars of the sale and all the terms and conditions. So that you should be able to get that.
Could we have like a link on our township website to
I
get
could,
to that?
yeah, I could do that for you.
Thank you.
Wonder if they can use PayPal or something. What are you going to do? Give me a Visa card? Is this a secured network? I mean, what?
I don't know.
Yeah? Got to figure that one out. Okay.
They all take cash.
No.
Anyone else like to be heard at this time? Seeing none, hearing none, going once, twice, motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion for adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Meeting is adjourned.
I'll give you all of these.